Hi everybody, this is Vince again at Insurance School. Guess what we're going to talk about today? Is it that time of the year? Yeah, it is that time of the year. It might be a little bit late, maybe a week or so, or your students might be going back to college this week or next. In any case, it's an important time to consider what you need to do to make sure that your students are insured properly, depending on if they're new to the university, if they're heading off to school for the first time. If they're freshmen, they are probably going to be living in a dorm, which in that case, if they're living in a dorm, your homeowner's policy is going to probably extend coverage for personal property under your homeowner's policy to your student living in a dorm setting. Once again, you always want to check with your insurance agent on your specific insurance plan and policy to check the coverage and the benefits. Are they full-time students or are they part-time students? Full-time students in a dorm would approximately have about 10% of your personal property coverage away at school. So for instance, let's just say, I don't know, you had $300,000 of full replacement cost coverage for your personal property. Your student would have $30,000 of personal property coverage at university when they're away at school in their dorm. Important because obviously we've got a lot of different things nowadays that we have to be concerned about. First and foremost, we have to worry about our computers. Maybe we have computer screens we have to worry about, that we've got equipment that attaches all this computer equipment together so that your students can function properly in their dorm rooms, doing their homework or having Zoom conferences or taking classes maybe online. Believe it or not, there are some students that go to university and have classes inside the classes of the dorms, not the dorms, but the universities. And some classes actually are held virtually and through Zoom. So it's not always going to be a situation where your student's going to be at the university and taking classes in a live classroom setting in an auditorium or a lecture center. So it's really important that we make sure that your students have the proper coverage when they are away at school. Glasses, computers, computer equipment. Sometimes if your phones are not covered properly, or if you don't have extra insurance you may have purchased through your insurance, your phone carrier, or whatever. If you've purchased an Apple phone, you may have Apple coverage that way. You want to check that too and make sure that you have a complete understanding of how that phone is insured away at school. Always a good idea, obviously, to make sure that the students have those password protected, maybe Face ID, so that they have protection while they're away at school. Oftentimes, you know, people leave their phones in various places. They may leave their phone at the library accidentally, at the student union. They may leave it at another student's dorm room by accident. So you want to make sure that all these things are taken care of and covered properly under your homeowner's policy if your student is living in a dorm setting. Important too that they are full-time students, so that you understand and have that conversation with your insurance agent so that you better understand how this would be covered as far as personal property is concerned. Students are going to take you know, clothing and maybe a television, maybe a stereo. There's a lot of different things that we depend on, not necessarily you know, taking you know, maybe a turntable. You know, some kids are into turntables. I know those were back in the day. There were turntables in dorm rooms when I was going to college, and some guys even had reel-to-reel. So those types of things are personal property, and they really need to be covered under a homeowner's policy that extends coverage in dorms to your students. So please do check, if you haven't done so already. Have the conversation with your insurance agent. Call them this week. Call and just kind of go over your homeowner's policy. Let them know where your dependent is going to school. Some homeowners policies, not only do the students have to be full-time students, but they have to fit into age parameters. Age maybe 24 to 26 may be a limit as far as the coverage on a homeowner's policy is concerned as well. So those are types of questions that you want to make sure that you address to your insurance agent. Have specifics so that you have great knowledge of what would and would not be covered. And you also want to make sure that your students or your dependents at a college are aware of what they need to do to file a claim if necessary. So that's the most important thing, the personal property. You also have to be concerned about liability too. Sometimes things happen, believe it or not, at school, at college, when you're away at college, that just like any other situation, you might be in a social setting, you might be at a party, you might be at a tailgate or something of that nature, and maybe there's a little argument that transpires, and somebody is involved in a little bit of a fight, and somebody presses charges and somebody's injured. So you want to make sure that you've got medical coverage, you've got liability coverage as well. How does that extend under your homeowner's policy to your student when they're living in a dorm? So that's one of the most important things you want to address as far as a parent with a new student going away to college. The other thing you want to consider too is if your college student is now maybe in their second or third or fourth, fifth year, and they're living off campus, if they're living in their own apartment, it is a good idea, especially living in an apartment or renting a room or being part of a house that's being rented by a number of different students, that your dependent, who's a college student, has their own renter's insurance policy, making sure that their personal property is covered under that renter's insurance policy. You do not want to have a renter's policy with your child's name and their friend's name or their roommate's name or somebody else's name on that renter's policy, because that may affect, at some point in time, if they were to go to get their own insurance later, a claim could come back under a policy that their name was on, even if it's another student that was named as an owner of the policy. That could come back and kind of haunt you in the future as well. So you need to make sure that your college student has a renter's policy that will cover, and make sure that you're looking, once again, at full replacement cost. If there's anything lost, if that computer gets lost or stolen, if their television, I know sometimes people send furniture up to college. Sometimes you just kind of thrift furniture, but nonetheless, you're still spending some kind of money to get that apartment or that house filled with some furniture, so that your students can live somewhat of a normal life while they're away from home and away from all the luxuries that they don't realize that they have when they're part of your household. So it's really important. Make sure you get that renter's insurance policy. Probably going to cost you, I don't know, maybe $240, $250 a year just to have a renter's insurance policy with $300,000 of liability. I would err on the side of caution, and instead of having a low liability like $100,000, like I said, there may be a party in a house or an apartment at school, and somebody may get hurt that is attending that party, and you don't want to be exposed to any sort of liability or medical issues where you don't have insurance, or again, your student doesn't have significant enough liability insurance or medical insurance. So again, have conversations with your insurance agent in regards to the type of coverage and policy that would best fit your student, whether it be a freshman, sophomore that still lives in a dorm, or sophomore on through that may rent a house as part of a group, or may live in an apartment setting. You want to make sure that they have the correct type of policy. You're probably looking at, like I said, about $250, $260 a year for $20,000 to $30,000 of personal policy coverage. You probably don't need that much, but there are minimums that you can purchase with a renter's policy. And again, that's a conversation to have with your insurance agent. And then the liability coverage, once again, and medical coverage is really important, so that you have sufficient enough coverage. I mean, the amount of money that you stand to lose, or the exposure that's there if something were to happen, or something, there are fires at schools, unfortunately, or there are thefts at schools. Things happen, just like any other form and fashion of life where you're living in your home. Things happen, and sometimes they're more likely to happen when a student is away at school, and if they don't have the proper coverage, they're going to be exposed, and you're going to be the ones helping them foot the bill to kind of replace these things. So really important that you talk to the insurance agent. If you haven't done so already, get on the phone this week, give the insurance agent a call, go over what your student is doing, where your student's going to school, whether it's a dorm, whether it's an apartment, whether it's a home, and how they should be insured to protect their personal property and the liability that they may face if something were to happen. The other thing to kind of consider too is, what's going on as far as transportation is concerned. Is your student going to be driving their own car or driving a car that's insured under your policy up to school so that they can commute back and forth? That's a good question to ask your insurance agent as well. You want to let them know what the situation is. If your son or daughter is going, upstate or downstate in the state in which you live, are they going to be taking a vehicle that's insured under your policy? Are they going out of state? That's important too. Let them know where they are. They need to know this information, and you need to be transparent so that things are processed properly if there's ever a claim involved. And something also to consider when you're talking about a student going away at school, you want to make sure that you've got towing under the policy. If you don't have towing on your car insurance policy, obviously there's some other resources out there, without naming them, where you can actually get a membership, and it would cover maybe your student or maybe your family and a couple dependents under the plan, where you have towing if something were to happen at campus or off campus. One of the other things too, just as a side note in regards to students going away at school, and we're kind of talking about personal property liability and medical coverage at this point in time, but really important that your student has information in regards to your health insurance. Where do they have their health insurance? Do they have their insurance identification card? Do they understand the phone number they need to call if they are going to go seek care? Do they understand, or have you explained to them what type of policy they have? Can they go to any urgent care? Can they go to campus care? Is that going to be covered under your health insurance policy? So these types of things need to be addressed if they haven't been addressed already. It's always a good idea to keep them in the loop as far as the students are concerned on where they need to call, who they need to contact if there's ever a claim situation, whether it be the renter's insurance or extension of your homeowner's insurance, but especially when you're talking about health insurance. If you have a HMO plan or an EPO plan, E as in Edward, P as in Paul, O as in Oscar plan, those plans are a little bit more restrictive in regards to making sure you're going to the right places in different areas of the country. So you want to maybe kind of get ahead of things and call your insurance agent, your health insurance company, and find out, okay, what type of providers can my son or daughter go to while they're away at school? Can we find some urgent cares that are in network with our insurance plan? Do we understand what needs to be done? Some plans offer you the opportunity to actually reach out to a nurse. If you're ever in a situation, it's a free call to the insurance company, and they'll give you some guidance, or they'll give you some guidance as far as what facilities or doctors may be in network around the campus that your son or daughter is attending university at. So these types of things really need to be addressed. If they haven't been addressed already, please do. I encourage you to reach out and make sure that you're talking to your student about the renter's insurance and about their homeowners or health insurance, so that they're aware of what they can do and cannot do and who they need to call if there's an issue as far as their health or their personal property is concerned. Sometimes people have asked me questions and sent me emails in regards to different subjects that they'd like me to address. And if you feel that the information that I'm providing to you is informative, important, and you'd like other people to have that information as well, it's really important that, do me a favor and hit the like button, hit the subscribe button to my videos so that this content can go out to other people that may need it, because oftentimes, unfortunately, we don't spend enough time getting the information that we need on the front end of something to find out how insurance works, what the coverage and benefits are, what our obligation is as far as finding out if places are in network, and what type of coverages we need to have, especially when kids are going off to school for the first time or on their own in their own apartment or their home. So it's really important that you understand your insurance. That's why I'm doing this. I want to make sure that you have as much information as possible. Please sit down or call your insurance agent, speak to them, send them a text, have some conversation with that agent so that you're clear on when your kids go to college, what type of coverage and benefits they need, and what's important to you to make sure that your liability is covered. So if you have any additional questions or concerns, any other subjects that you'd like me to address, by all means, please feel free to put some comments in the area below, and I'd be more than happy to reach back out with another video Somebody had asked me about insurance for their college students, so I wanted to make sure I got this out as quickly as possible, and that's why we're here. So have yourself a great day. Best of luck to your students away at school, and hope it's a great year and everybody stays safe and healthy and enjoys the upcoming semester. Thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it, and thanks again for coming back. It means a lot to me, and please do subscribe when you have an opportunity, and send this information out to maybe friends or family that may also have students going away to school this year. Thanks again. Have a